Hello everyone, this video tells a story in which narrates boy cheating on him, he left her and met another woman who also cheating on him, which a rich collected and sat beneath him. It's a really crazy and amazing story. Your opinion in the comments, enjoy your viewing.
My wife cheated on me. I left her and met another who also cheated on me with a wealthy colleague and set thugs on me. My name is Mark, and I'm 34. I've been with my girlfriend, now fiancée Emily, for 6 years. We've been through a lot together, and I thought we were solid. We're supposed to get married in 2 weeks, but now everything feels like it's falling apart. Last night, my friend Alex called me sounding really upset. Alex is the kind of friend who would take a bullet for you, so I knew something serious was up. He told me we needed to meet urgently. We agreed to meet at our favorite bar, a quiet place where we could talk privately. When I arrived, Alex was already there, looking tense. He started off slowly, trying to choose his words carefully. After a few minutes of awkward small talk, he finally came out with it. He had seen Emily with another man, not just once, but several times over the past few months. He'd even taken some photos to prove it, knowing that I would need solid evidence. At first, I couldn't believe it. Emily and I have always been honest with each other, or so I thought. We've had our ups and downs, but cheating? I didn't think she was capable of it. Alex handed me his phone, showing me the photos. There they were, clear as day. Emily and this guy, getting cozy at a cafe, holding hands at the park, and even kissing outside a hotel. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My first reaction was denial. There had to be some explanation. Maybe it was someone who looked like her, but as I looked closer, there was no mistaking it. It was her. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The woman I was about to marry had been lying to me. I thanked Alex for telling me, though it was the last thing I wanted to hear. I went home, my mind racing. I needed to talk to Emily, confront her, but I had no idea how to start that conversation. When I walked in the door, she was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. The sight of her, so calm and unsuspecting, made me feel sick. I didn't say anything that night. I couldn't. I needed time to process everything. I barely slept, my mind replaying the images over and over. By morning, I knew I had to confront her. I took a deep breath and told her that I knew about her and the other guy. Her face went pale. I showed her the photos. She started to cry and admitted to the affair, saying it started a few months ago. She tried to justify it, saying she felt neglected and lonely. We were planning a wedding, for God's sake. How could she be lonely? The conversation turned into a shouting match. She accused me of not being there for her emotionally. I accused her of being a liar and a cheat. It was like all the love and trust we had built over the years was crumbling before my eyes. I needed to get out of there. I grabbed my keys and left, driving aimlessly until I ended up at Alex's place. He let me crash on his couch and listened as I poured out my heart. I felt betrayed, lost, and confused. The next few days were a blur. Emily kept calling and texting, begging for another chance. She said she ended the affair and wanted to make things right. But how could I trust her again? How could I marry someone who betrayed me like this? As if the emotional turmoil wasn't enough, things took an even darker turn. A few days later, I received a call from the police. They wanted to speak with Emily about something. I had no idea what was going on, but it seemed serious. I told them where to find her, and soon enough they showed up at our apartment. Emily was taken in for questioning. Apparently the guy she had been seeing was involved in some illegal activities, and Emily was now a person of interest. My world, which was already upside down, was now spinning out of control. I tried to focus on work, but it was impossible. All I could think about was Emily and what might happen next. Would she be arrested? Was she involved in something criminal, or was she just caught up in someone else's mess? My mind was racing with possibilities. Emily called me from the police station, crying, saying she needed my help. Against my better judgment, I went to see her. She looked a wreck, and seeing her like that stirred up a mix of emotions in me. She explained that her affair partner, Steve, was involved in smuggling and other illegal activities. She claimed she had no idea and was terrified. She begged me to help her find a lawyer. I agreed to help, but only because I didn't want to see her go to jail if she was truly innocent of any wrongdoing. We found a lawyer, and the legal battle began. It was a nightmare. The stress of the impending wedding, the betrayal, and now the legal issues were tearing me apart. Emily moved out to stay with her parents while the investigation continued. I tried to focus on myself to figure out what I wanted. The wedding was postponed indefinitely. Friends and family were starting to ask questions, and I didn't know how to answer them without revealing the mess my life had become. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't marry Emily. The trust was gone, and I didn't see a way to rebuild it. I needed to end things for good. When I told her, she was devastated. She cried, begged, and pleaded, but my mind was made up. It was over. With the wedding called off, I tried to pick up the pieces of my life. I threw myself into work and leaned on my friends for support. Alex was a rock, always there to listen and offer advice. He suggested I take some time away, maybe even move to a new city for a fresh start. It sounded like a good idea. I needed a change, something to help me move on from the pain and betrayal. I started looking for jobs in other cities and found a promising opportunity in San Francisco. It was a big move, but I felt ready for it. Just when I thought things were settling down, another unexpected event occurred. One evening, as I was packing up my apartment, there was a knock on the door. It was Steve. He looked frantic and disheveled. My heart raced as I let him in, wondering what he wanted. He explained that he was in deep trouble and needed a place to hide. He swore he was trying to get out of the criminal life but was being hunted by dangerous people. Part of me wanted to throw him out, but another part, the part that remembered how lost and scared Emily had been, hesitated. Against my better judgment, I let him stay for the night. We talked, and he revealed more about his life and how he got involved in smuggling. It was a sad story, and despite everything, I felt a bit of sympathy for him. He promised he would leave the next day and never bother me again. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of banging on my door. It was the police. They had tracked Steve to my apartment. I was furious and scared as they took him away. They questioned me, and I told them everything. I had nothing to hide. The incident with Steve was the last straw. I couldn't stay in that apartment, in that city, any longer. I finalized my plans to move to San Francisco and left as soon as possible. Starting over in a new city was challenging but refreshing. I made new friends, found a great job, and started to rebuild my life. The pain of Emily's betrayal slowly faded, replaced by a sense of hope and new beginnings. But just when I thought I was finally free from the past, Emily reached out again. She had moved to San Francisco as well, hoping for a fresh start. She wanted to meet, to talk, to see if there was any chance of rekindling our relationship. I was torn. Part of me still loved her, but another part remembered the pain and betrayal. I agreed to meet her, if only to get some closure. We met at a cafe, and it was awkward at first. She apologized again, saying she had changed and wanted to make things right. She admitted to her mistakes and said she understood if I couldn't forgive her. As we talked, I realized that while I still had feelings for her, too much had happened for us to go back to how things were. I needed to move forward, not backward. In the end, we parted ways amicably. She wished me well, and I did the same for her. It was bittersweet, but it was the closure I needed. Life moved on. I focused on my career, made new friends, and even started dating again. The scars from the past were still there, but they were healing. One day, I was out with some colleagues from work when we met another group of people at the bar. Among them was a woman named Rachel. She was outgoing, funny, and had a captivating presence. We hit it off immediately, talking and laughing like we had known each other for years. She worked in marketing, had just moved to San Francisco from New York, and was also trying to start fresh. Rachel and I began to see each other more often. We went out for dinners, explored the city, and spent hours just talking about everything and anything. I felt a connection with her that I hadn't felt in a long time. She made me feel alive again. Just as things were starting to look up, I received a call from a detective working on Steve's case. They needed me to come in for questioning again. Apparently, Steve had been involved in something much bigger than just smuggling. There were ties to organized crime, and they needed every bit of information they could get. The stress of being involved in a criminal investigation started to take its toll. I didn't want Rachel to know about it, fearing it might scare her away. I started to become distant, which she noticed. One evening, she confronted me about it, and I had to come clean. I told her everything about Emily, Steve, and the police. To my surprise, Rachel was incredibly understanding. She told me that everyone has a past, and what mattered was how we dealt with it. Her support gave me strength, and I knew I had to face whatever came next head-on. The police investigation dragged on, and my involvement became more intense. I had to testify in court, providing evidence against Steve and his associates. It was nerve-wracking, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Steve's trial was a high-profile case, and the media coverage added another layer of stress. Throughout this ordeal, Rachel was my rock. She stood by me, offering unwavering support. Her presence was a constant reminder that there was still good in the world and that I could find happiness again. As the trial progressed, more details about Steve's criminal activities came to light. It was revealed that he had been running a large-scale smuggling operation, bringing in illegal goods from overseas. Emily's involvement was minimal, and she was eventually cleared of any wrongdoing. She reached out to thank me for helping her, and while I appreciated her gratitude, I knew we were better off apart. Steve was found guilty on multiple counts and sentenced to a lengthy prison term. With the trial over, I hoped to put this chapter of my life behind me and focus on building a future with Rachel. Just when things seemed to be settling down, I received a letter from Emily. She was moving back to our hometown and wanted to meet one last time before she left. I was hesitant, but decided it might be good to get some final closure. We met at a park where we used to spend time together. Emily looked different, more mature, but also more worn down by the events of the past year. She apologized again for everything that had happened and told me she was leaving to start anew. It was a bittersweet meeting, but it gave me the closure I needed. Returning to San Francisco, I felt a sense of relief. The dark cloud that had been hanging over me for so long was finally lifting. Rachel and I continued to grow closer, and our relationship deepened. We took a trip to the mountains, and it was there, amidst the serene beauty of nature, that I realized how far I had come. Life in San Francisco became more vibrant. Rachel and I started planning our future together. We talked about moving in, traveling the world, and even starting a family someday. The pain and betrayal I had experienced with Emily felt like a distant memory. However, life has a way of presenting new challenges. One evening, Rachel received a call from her brother Jake, who lived in New York. He was in trouble and needed her help. Rachel was torn. She loved her brother and wanted to help him, but she also didn't want to leave the life we were building together in San Francisco. Rachel decided to go to New York for a few weeks to help her brother. We promised to stay in touch and make things work long distance for a while. Her absence was difficult, but it gave me time to reflect on everything that had happened. While Rachel was in New York, I received a visit from a man named Victor. He introduced himself as a private investigator hired by someone connected to Steve's criminal network. He warned me that there were still people out there who held grudges against those who testified against Steve. The encounter with Victor left me shaken. I realized that the consequences of my involvement in the trial might not be over. I had to be cautious and vigilant. I informed Rachel about Victor's visit, and she urged me to be careful. Days turned into weeks, and Rachel's stay in New York extended longer than planned. Her brother's situation was more complicated than she had initially thought. We stayed in touch through calls and video chats, but the distance was taking its toll. One night, I received a frantic call from Rachel. Her brother had been involved in some shady business dealings and owed money to dangerous people. Rachel was scared and didn't know what to do. I wanted to fly to New York immediately, but Rachel insisted I stay in San Francisco and stay safe. I felt helpless, stuck in San Francisco while Rachel faced danger in New York. I reached out to Alex for advice, and he suggested I contact a lawyer and the authorities in New York to see what could be done to help Rachel and her brother. Days went by with little progress. The stress was mounting, and I could hear it in Rachel's voice every time we talked. Finally, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I booked a flight to New York and informed Rachel that I was coming to help her, whether she liked it or not. Arriving in New York, I felt a mix of determination and fear. I met with Rachel and Jake, and we tried to come up with a plan to resolve his issues. We decided to involve the authorities, providing them with all the information we had about the people Jake owed money to. The process was slow and dangerous. We received threats, and there were moments when it felt like we were in over our heads. But with persistence and the help of the authorities, we managed to turn the tide. The people threatening Jake were arrested, and Rachel and I felt a weight lift off our shoulders. With the crisis behind us, Rachel and I decided to return to San Francisco together. The experience had brought us even closer, and we realized that we could face anything as long as we were together. Back in San Francisco, life slowly returned to normal. Rachel and I continued to build our life together, stronger than ever before. The challenges we faced had tested our relationship, but they had also proven that we were a team, capable of overcoming anything. Back in San Francisco, Rachel and I settled into our new routine. Life seemed to be back on track, and we were both excited about the future. We started talking about moving in together, planning trips, and even discussing the possibility of starting a family. However, as time passed, I began to notice subtle changes in Rachel's behavior. Rachel started working late more often, and our conversations became shorter and less frequent. She seemed distracted, and there were times when she would avoid making eye contact. At first, I chalked it up to stress from her job, but as the weeks went by, it became clear that something else was going on. One evening, Rachel came home later than usual. She looked tired and a bit disheveled. I asked her if everything was okay, and she brushed it off, saying she had a lot of work to catch up on. But her excuses were becoming more frequent, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something from me. A few days later, I decided to follow my gut and see if my suspicions were correct. I asked Alex for advice, and he reluctantly suggested that I keep an eye on her, just to be sure. It wasn't something I wanted to do, but I needed to know the truth. One night, Rachel said she had to stay late at the office again. I waited for a while before heading to her workplace. I parked a little distance away and watched as she left the building. To my shock, she wasn't alone. A man was with her, and they were laughing and talking as they walked to his car. My heart sank as I saw them drive away together. The next day, I confronted Rachel. I told her I knew she had been seeing someone else. She didn't deny it. Instead, she confessed that she had been seeing her co-worker, David, for a few months. She said it started as a friendship, but it quickly escalated into something more. She admitted that she was drawn to him because of his wealth and the lifestyle he could provide. Feeling betrayed once again, I told Rachel it was over. I couldn't be with someone who valued money over love and loyalty. She tried to apologize, saying she made a mistake, but my mind was made up. I packed my bags and left the apartment we had shared. I decided to return to my hometown, seeking solace and a fresh start. I moved in with my parents temporarily while I figured out my next steps. It felt like I was starting from scratch, but I knew it was the right thing to do. A few weeks after moving back home, I began to rebuild my life. I reconnected with old friends and even started dating casually, trying to find a sense of normalcy. However, Rachel's betrayal still haunted me. It was hard to trust anyone after what had happened. One day, while walking through town, I ran into an old friend, Jessica. We had gone to high school together and had lost touch over the years. Jessica was now a successful lawyer, and she offered to help me navigate my legal options regarding Rachel and the fallout from our breakup. We started spending more time together, and it felt good to have someone who understood me and my situation. Just as things seemed to be looking up, I started receiving threatening messages from an unknown number. The messages warned me to stay away from Rachel and to stop causing trouble for her and David. I tried to ignore them, but the threats became more frequent and more specific. One night, I returned home to find my car vandalized. The tires were slashed and the windows were broken. I immediately called the police and reported the incident. They took my statement and said they would investigate, but I couldn't shake the feeling that David was behind this. The harassment escalated. I started receiving anonymous calls at all hours, and my email was hacked. Personal information was leaked online, and it felt like my life was spiraling out of control. I reached out to Jessica, and she advised me to file for a restraining order against David and Rachel. With Jessica's help, I gathered all the evidence I had and filed the necessary paperwork. The court granted the restraining order, but the damage was already done. My reputation in my hometown was tarnished, and I felt like I was constantly looking over my shoulder. Determined to take back control of my life, I decided to confront David directly. I found out where he worked and went to see him. When I arrived, he was smug and unapologetic. He admitted to sending the threats and vandalizing my car, saying he wanted to teach me a lesson for leaving Rachel. I recorded our conversation on my phone, capturing his confession. Armed with this evidence, I went to the police and pressed charges against David. He was arrested and faced multiple charges, including harassment and vandalism. With David out of the picture, I began to focus on healing and moving forward. I started therapy to deal with the emotional trauma of the past year. My therapist helped me understand that I needed to forgive myself and let go of the anger I felt towards Rachel and David. It was a long process, but I slowly began to feel more like myself again. Jessica and I continued to grow closer, and our friendship eventually blossomed into something more. She was patient and understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was comfortable with. For the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. As the months went by, Jessica and I decided to take a trip together to a small cabin in the mountains. It was a chance to escape from everything and enjoy some peace and quiet. During our trip, we talked about our dreams and aspirations, and I realized how much I had grown since my time with Emily and Rachel. On our last night at the cabin, we sat by the fireplace, wrapped in each other's arms. I looked at Jessica and knew that she was the person I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. She had stood by me through the darkest times and had helped me find my way back to happiness. Returning to our hometown, Jessica and I decided to take our relationship to the next level. We moved in together and started planning our future. I found a job that I loved, working with a nonprofit organization that helped at-risk youth. It was fulfilling work and it gave me a sense of purpose. Jessica continued her work as a lawyer and we supported each other in our careers. Our life together was far from perfect, but it was real and honest. We faced challenges head-on and celebrated our victories, big and small. As the years passed, we built a life that we were proud of. We got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family, and we eventually started a family of our own. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and the occasional chaos that comes with raising children. Looking back on everything that had happened, I realized that every experience, no matter how painful, had shaped me into the person I was today. I had learned to trust again, to love again, and to find happiness in the little things. Life has a way of testing us, pushing us to our limits and forcing us to confront our deepest fears. But it also has a way of surprising us with moments of unexpected joy and connection. I had found my way through the darkness and had emerged stronger and more resilient. As I sat on the porch of our home, watching the sunset with Jessica by my side and our children playing in the yard, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. The past was behind me, and the future was bright. I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them and the love of a wonderful partner to support me. However, as much as I wanted to move on completely, life had other plans. Despite David's arrest and the restraining order, there were still remnants of the turmoil he had caused. His associates, angry and vengeful, began to target me in other ways. They vandalized my parents' house, spreading fear and unrest among my family. I knew I had to take action to protect the people I loved. Jessica and I decided to hire a private investigator to dig deeper into David's network and gather more evidence. We needed to ensure that these threats would stop once and for all. The private investigator, a seasoned professional named Mike, quickly uncovered more about David's criminal connections. It turned out that David had been involved in money laundering and other illegal activities, and his associates were determined to silence anyone who threatened their operations. With this new information, we went back to the police, who agreed to increase surveillance on my family and launch a more extensive investigation into David's associates. It was a tense and stressful period, but I was determined to see it through. Meanwhile, Jessica and I continued to build our life together. Despite the ongoing threats, we refused to let fear control us. We focused on our work, our relationship, and our future. The support we had from friends and family was invaluable, and it gave us the strength to keep going. One night, as Jessica and I were discussing our plans, we heard a noise outside. We rushed to the window and saw two men trying to break into our car. Jessica immediately called the police, while I grabbed a baseball bat and went outside to confront them. The men saw me and fled, but not before I managed to get a good look at their faces. The police arrived quickly, and with the description I provided, they were able to apprehend the suspects. It turned out that they were indeed connected to David's criminal network. This incident was a wake-up call for the authorities, who realized just how dangerous David's associates were. The police increased their efforts, making several more arrests and dismantling the criminal network piece by piece. It was a long and arduous process, but eventually the threats subsided. We were finally able to breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that the danger had passed. With the criminal network dismantled, life began to return to normal. Jessica and I continued to grow closer, and our relationship flourished. We got married in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. It was a day filled with love, joy, and the promise of a bright future. We decided to move to a new house, one that held no memories of the past turmoil. Our new home was a sanctuary, a place where we could start fresh and build a life free from fear and anxiety. We decorated it together, filling it with warmth and love. Jessica and I both continued to excel in our careers. She became a partner at her law firm, and I expanded the nonprofit organization, reaching more at-risk youth and making a significant impact in the community. Our professional successes were matched by the happiness we found in our personal lives. As time went on, we welcomed 2 beautiful children into our family. Our home was filled with the sounds of laughter and the pitter-patter of little feet. Parenting was a new adventure, one that brought its own set of challenges and rewards. Jessica and I supported each other through sleepless nights, tantrums, and the joys of watching our children grow. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jessica turned to me and said how grateful she was for the life we had built together. Her words echoed my own feelings. Despite the hardships we had faced, we had come out stronger and more resilient. We had learned to cherish every moment and to find joy in the simple things. Reflecting on my journey, I realized how far I had come. From the heartbreak of Emily's betrayal to the chaos caused by David, and finally to the peace and happiness I had found with Jessica, it had been a roller coaster of emotions. But every experience had taught me something valuable. I had learned the importance of trust, the power of resilience, and the strength of love. I had discovered that no matter how dark the days might seem, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And most importantly, I had learned to forgive myself and to let go of the past. As I watched our children play in the yard, I knew that the future was bright. Jessica and I had faced every challenge together, and we had come out stronger on the other side. We were ready to embrace whatever came our way, knowing that we had the love and support of each other to guide us. And so, this is my story, a tale of love, betrayal, and redemption. Life is full of unexpected twists and turns, but with hope, perseverance, and the right person by your side, anything is possible. I had found my happy ending, and I knew that no matter what the future held, we would face it together, hand in hand.
Hello guys, it's really amazing story. What do you think? Write comment, put likes, subscribe, share on Instagram and Discord. Good luck!